Welcome back, everyone, to episode 3 of the Cover Zero podcast. We are all back in Memphis. There was a snowstorm, snow slash ice slash sleet storm this past weekend that really changed everybody's plans and has left a lot of Mississippi without power, some of Tennessee over towards Nashville, but Memphis, we pretty much just got sleet. And yeah, it made for a good football watching weekend. So, just start off, Ryan. How you been, man? How you doing?
As you just said, snow came through, so life's been a little crazy. Baseball has been on pause currently because the field is obviously inaccessible.
Right.
Um, but we're making do with what we got, still getting our stuff done. We got Zoom classes. We had
Mm,
one today, and we're having them again tomorrow. And then that's kind of about life right now. It's kind of hard to get around. The refectories don't have all that much food right
right.
now, but so I'm kind of living off PB&Js.
Fair enough.
But we're making do,
We're
and
making it.
it's pretty chill.
Yeah.
Just talking
That's the
ball.
the one bone I have to pick before we get into these games, the championship Sunday is the pandemic. One of the side effects of the COVID-19 pandemic is the inclusion and regularity now of Zoom class in case of snow. And I think that it has nearly negated the snow day that molds our youth and our childhood and our in our case, our early 20s. And I think that you got to bring them back. You got to cancel Zoom classes. You got to let the kids be, and you got to pick it back up when you can pick it back up. But hey, that's just me. But let's get right into it. So, on Sunday, we had the early game was the Patriots and the Broncos. So the Patriots beat the Broncos 10-7. And the first question I would like to ask is, do we need domes in cold weather climate fields, areas, regions, cities in the NFL? And the reason I ask this question is because the fourth quarter of that game was practically non-existent. It was pretty much a 45-minute game because in the fourth quarter, neither team could move the ball because of how heavy the snow was coming down. So that's going to be my first question for you, Ryan, is do you think that there should be domes?
I can't really give you a yes or no on that because the snow was kind of awesome. But I also looked around the room when we were watching the game, and I was like, there were 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and I was like, this game is ending at this score, and the
Mm,
Patriots have already moved on to the Super Bowl because it just wasn't, there was no way to move the ball. Guys were moving in slow motion, and and people were slipping and sliding. I can't remember if there were more than two or three first downs within the last 10 minutes of that game. It was kind of ridiculous how terrible the ball was moving, and it ended up just being a punch show. Are domes entirely necessary? No, because we've seen snow games where, the ball has moved pretty well. We saw
right.
the one with the Bills and the Bengals earlier this year where both quarterbacks still were slinging it, but I mean, Drake May might win the MVP and he had 86 yards the
Hmm.
entire game. Like that's saying a lot about Denver's defense, but it's also saying a lot about what it's like playing in those conditions. And they have a pretty solid run game. So,
Right.
it's not like they just sold out for the pass. But
I
yeah,
think, yeah, I think that there would be a different. I wish there was a different world where we got to see Bo Nix on Sunday because
yeah.
I think that there were some obviously there were some limitations with Jarrett Stidham and what Sean Payton wanted to do. He's not moving the pocket as much. He's not having him use his legs to pick up first downs. That wasn't really a threat. I think he did it once. And I wish there was a world where we could see Bo Nix because I not that I necessarily think the outcome would have changed because I think there needs to be credit where credit is due, and the Patriots. defensive line and their secondary really came to play, and their backers did a great job. And Christian Gonzalez got beat early in the game, but ended up having the interception towards the end, which was one of the worst throws I've ever seen.
It was terrible.
Um, I wish I could go through the mind of a Jarrett Stidham in that exact situation, but I I'm kind of with you. I love a snow game. Growing up in the Northeast, I've been a part of a few Eagles snow bowls, and they're a beautiful thing to watch. And it makes for the greatest NFL films clips of all time when they put the orchestra in the back and the snow's falling and it's in slow motion. But
Absolutely.
I think there comes a point where the NFL is going to have to seriously think what is more valuable. Is it kind of the aesthetic of the football game? Because I think that the aesthetic of the football game was lost at the end of that game on Sunday because of how poor the quality of the football was. But I think you got to look and see and ask yourself, why has there never been a Super Bowl that's in the snow? Because the most important games need to be in a controlled environment where the
Yeah.
weather is not going to be a factor. And if the deciding factor in a game where one team's starting quarterback is out and the other team's MVP quarterback is playing, and the final score is 10-7, it leads me to believe that maybe Denver should have won the game and could have won the game if it were in better conditions.
Yeah, and I mean the same goes for both teams. Like I think Drake May doesn't throw for under 150 yards, under 200 yards if it's, in a relatively tame conditions. And when your season is on the line, like it's all fun and games when it's a regular season game and there's stakes, but a loss typically isn't going to kill you in a regular season game. Whereas, I mean, this is literally your season on the line
Hmm.
and you got another 6 months ahead of you in off season until the next season rolls around, or more than that, really. But yeah, I I think we're just seeing more domes getting constructed anyways, so I think
Hmm.
we're gonna start seeing less and less snow games in general. But yeah, I mean, you could tell that that game was somewhat dictated by the weather, and it would have been nice to see those two teams actually square up for what they had
Hmm.
rather than, try and battle the conditions together.
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's been some speculation about the Eagles building a new stadium, and whether it's going to be covered like a canopy type thing like they have out in SoFi in California, if it's going to be a dome, if it's going to be retractable, kind of leading to the idea of the city of Philadelphia potentially hosting a Super Bowl or bigger events in the future. And I think that a lot of these owners are going to kind of start thinking in a similar fashion because bringing a Super Bowl or bringing, like this summer there will be a lot of World Cup games everywhere, and they're thinking about changing the times of the games because of how hot it's going to be. So then that adds another layer to
Right.
if you're playing at Jerry's World, you're not going to have to change the time of game because it's covered. And so I think that'll be a little bit of a factor because especially for these billionaire owners, they're trying to create the best legacy for themselves as they can. If they're the one that creates this unbelievable stadium, I think they would love to do that. Um, Another thing that I want to talk about is the play of Will Campbell. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I remember there was one play, I believe it was Nick Bonito was rushing off of the edge. Correct me if I'm wrong, people that are listening. And Bonito, or whoever the end was in a wide nine and is lining up damn near in the slot to rush the passer. And Will Campbell does not get out of his stance and has to end up kind of diving at him to try and cut block him. And that was really the nail in the coffin to me, to where I don't think Will Campbell's a bad player. I think Will Campbell is more fit to be a guard or a potentially a right tackle. I just don't think you can have him protecting your franchise quarterback. And I th remember in the draft process, one knock on him was that his arms were small, to where he said in his interview, I've played starting tackle in the SEC for however many years it was, but the it can make a difference, and I think that could be part of why he gets beat so much because he allows defenders to get too close to him, and has trouble, getting out of that stance real quick and getting his arms up.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm no tackle expert by any means, but I feel like every clip I see of him getting beat, it's getting beat around like
Hmm.
he did in that clip. And it just kind of says something about his play. Like he was kind of lights out before his injury early on in the year
Hmm.
and then completely fell off the table. And I don't know if he's hurting somewhere. I don't know what it is, but Y- yeah, he's not. Yeah, you said it right. He's not getting out of his stance. He's not getting out of where he starts. He needs to, be able to maneuver himself around and get himself in the right position to actually
Hmm.
freaking block the guy. And again, no offensive line expert. I know a lot more about skill positions, but yeah, it's a little concerning there because they just spent a number 5 overall pick on him, but I think he will be all right. I'm interested to see how he's going to stack up against the Seahawks defense, though, because they got a really good pass rush.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see, like you're saying, those edges and how they can creatively attack him, and how Seattle's defense can, maybe use some safeties or some DBs and backers to blitz and give him a different look and stunts. But yeah, last thing I think on this game, a big kind of something that jumped out of the box score to me was that Denver went 4 for 14 on third down, and in the playoffs and those type of games, that's really not going to cut it. And they found themselves in third and long a lot, and it was a lot of these negative runs, or blown up passes. Or there was in the first half there was a fumble by Jarrett Stidham that was a scoop and score, but they blew the play dead. So they ended up getting in the end zone, I believe, or at least getting 3 points. So yeah, they just didn't execute enough on the money downs, and that led to them being knocked out and the Patriots going to the Super Bowl. So, and then we can get over to the Sunday night game, which was the Seahawks and the Rams. And Ryan, I'll let you kick this one off because this was just an unbelievable game.
Yeah, this game was pretty insane. And it was kind of exactly what we expected from this game because the Rams and the Seahawks have been going at each other all year. They've had some high scoring games. They both have high firepower offenses that move the ball quickly down the
Hmm.
field. And while the Seahawks have an amazing defense, when you're facing the Rams, they kind of make you look like you don't have an amazing defense. And so it was the Seahawks offense is great, but the Rams defense is kind of about average. So we expected, a high scoring game on
Hmm.
that front. And then, like I just said, the Rams offense just is so unstoppable at times with that passing game. When Puka really is on the same page with Stafford, they are
They're
ridiculous.
lethal.
Like they're so hard to stop. And then you got Devontae Adams. He'll run fades outside the numbers. You got two backs that can really do it. You got two tight ends that can really do it.
Hmm.
And you know, that makes for a high scoring game when you have that kind of attack, no matter what defense is out there. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to say.
Hmm.
But I think one thing that it was really showcased was both teams' play calling. It felt like both teams knew exactly what the defense was trying to do, and they were able to expose it. Like that one play where it was the JSN touchdown. I think it brought them up 11 or
Hmm.
something like that. And it was cover two. You had a deep safety, you had a flat defender, you had the corner, and they ran an out with one guy, they ran a post with the other guy to drag both those guys away, and JSN was wide open. He
Hmm.
came through
Out of the
it,
backfield, that
it was like
was
a
yeah.
motion kind of out of the backfield and then zipped up the field corner out boom
Hmm.
touchdown.
Yeah, that was my favorite play of the game.
Yeah.
Um, It was a usually a red zone scissors kind of concept where it's usually a running back running that kind of release up and out and to the pylon, but they ran it with JSN, and I think that it's kind of you see those types of play calls out of Seattle and those types of concepts, and you look across the field and see who they're playing, and you wonder where it came from because that's the type of thing you see from a Sean McVay. That's the type of thing you see from a Kyle Shanahan. And I think they're the beneficiary of playing in a division with two of the brightest offensive minds in football. And I think that Sam Darnold, after there being all the hubbub about his oblique and not throwing too many balls during the week, I thought that he won them this football game with his
Yeah.
decision making and with his ball placement and not putting the ball in harm's way, knowing when to extend the play and knowing when to get rid of it and dirt it. He ended the game with 346 and three touchdowns. And I just thought um, his his ability to take what they're giving to him while also, if you're going to give him an open dig route 25 yards down the field, he's going to hit it because he's feeling himself that much. And there were a few balls that got away from him that were timing was a little bit off, but you can make those mistakes when you have so many different weapons that are usable. And Rashid Shaheed has been stretching the field all year. At the beginning of the game, catches a go ball where he just absolutely torches. I think it was either Emmanuel Forbes or Kobe Durant. And JSN goes for 10 catches, 153 yards and a touchdown. It's just the they are kind of not that it's the power of friendship necessarily, because these guys are all so talented, but JSN obviously in a breakout year is arguably the best receiver in football this year. But outside of him, Rashid Shaheed was kind of an outcast in New Orleans. We all knew he had it, and he's doing it. The Zach Charbonnet injury, I think, rejuvenated Kenny Walker and could have potentially saved his career because the first drive they get into their first and goal and he kind of gets him down there with some hard runs, a reception, and they give him the ball three straight times, and it just seemed like Kenny Walker just wanted it more all game, and it was the hardest I've ever seen him run, and he's naturally a hard runner, and it just seemed like it was going to take more than one guy to take him down every single time he touched the football. So that was one of the highlights for me was kind of seeing him kind of come out of his shell a little bit, both receiving and rushing football. And it makes it back-to-back weeks of good games.
Yeah, I think Kenneth Walker really showcased exactly what he can do. You know, throughout the season, I was a guy who had him on my fantasy team, and it was really frustrating to
Hmm.
watch him not get the ball in the red zone and for him to get, 10 to 12 carries a game instead of 15 to 18 and not really get as many receptions as he should have. But I think the Seahawks are kind of proving exactly why they did that. And that's because he's running the ball at his best right now, as
Hmm.
opposed to in October, November. They wanted his legs fresh, and
Hmm.
guess what? His legs are fresh, and
Right.
he's really, really running the rock right
Hmm.
now. Um, and so yeah, he looks great. I hope we get to see full seasons of this because he could really put up some serious, serious numbers and make some serious, serious bread in the
Hmm.
future.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it was really refreshing almost to see a full game of Kenneth Walker head first, running the ball hard, making some crazy moves. But also I wanted to touch on before we uh talk about something else. Like this goes back to my point earlier about the Seahawks offense is they have so many avenues in which they can move the ball. They had obviously Charbonnet's hurt now, but they had the dual threat rushing attack where Kenneth Walker is going to break off your big runs and he's going to do all the cool stuff with the ball, and Charbonnet is going to go for 3 yards in a cloud of dust straight into the tackles.
Mhm.
And you have JSN who can do everything in terms of wide receiver. You got Rashid Shaheed to stretch the field. You got Cooper Kupp, who is like the smartest football mind ever,
Right.
and he is going to settle in space. You got what's their freaking tight end's name?
Barner,
Uh,
AJ Barner.
yes, Barner. He's really good. They brought out Jake Bobo last game.
Hmm.
So they've got all these options, and that's the thing that we keep seeing out of these really good offenses. They have options. They have ways to maneuver the ball in different ways. You see it with you were talking about Shanahan earlier. Like they give the defense so many different looks with so much different personnel, and you have guys like Ben Johnson and the Bears, and you know, they've got the two back set. They've got three really solid receivers. They
Hmm.
got Loveland, Komet. So that's a popular trend that we're seeing with these offenses that are really killing it is they have so many guys who can do so many different things, and
Hmm.
that just makes for an offense that can really, really light you up.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the almost probably the number one trait of a championship team is they can beat you in so many ways. And I think that Seattle can do that with their defense and with, like you're saying, so many different weapons of different play styles that can do different things. A few more things I just wanted to touch on real quick. Devontae Adams is still yet to go to a Super Bowl, and it just looks like he is really, yeah, he's taking it hard. And
Yeah.
I think he is just he's a Hall of Famer and he deserves to go to the Super Bowl. And I don't think he's done. I think he could get back with the Rams, but he's obviously running out of time. He's getting older. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing is that Rashid Shaheed ran back a punt in the last meeting in the barn burner in Seattle in the regular season, and the Rams just refused to kick to him. And I would refuse to kick to him too because
I would
he
too.
is on an absolute burner right now for the type of player Rashid Shaheed is, a speed guy who you want the ball in his hands, who can also take the top off. And this is probably the best form that he's been in. He could be the best trade deadline acquisition of the year. Then the last thing is Nick Emmanwori, who is a rookie safety out of South Carolina for the Seahawks. He had 5 tackles, 4 solos in this game, and is really just doing everything. He's dropping
He's
down in the
so good. He does
box
everything.
to cover tight ends. He's playing a good center field when he has to. He has good eye discipline. He can rush the quarterback, and I think that that is going to be one of the biggest matchups and he could be an X factor in the Super Bowl is what is he going to do to confuse Drake May? Is he going to let Drake May look him off? Is he going to drop into the box and disguise coverage and, come and bring pressure when he's not expecting it? So that'll be one thing that I'm looking forward to watch in the Super Bowl is what happens with Nicky Manwari.
Yeah, I think lastly, the this game proved how much special teams matters. And I think a lot of the games that we saw between these two teams, the Rams might be more talented, but they miss too many field goals. They drop punts. They
Hmm.
have they've gotten kicks returned on them all year. They have a terrible, terrible special teams unit, and it lost them the game again. And it really goes to show how much winning the special teams game can put you in such a good position without even, going to offense or defense.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
that just food for thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, moving on, I think we can um, talk about some of the coaching hires. I think I'll just kind of run through the list right here of guys that have gotten taken on as head coaches or former head coaches now in a different role, and we can kind of just talk about what we think is notable and who we think is in a good spot. So, the biggest hire was John Harbaugh going to the Giants, got an absolute bag. We had Jesse Minter, the former Chargers DC, going to the Ravens. We had Kevin Stefanski taking the Falcons job, Robert Saleh to the Titans with Brian Daboll as his OC. We have Joe Brady being promoted to head coach from OC to head coach for the Buffalo Bills. Jeff Hafley, the Green Bay Packers DC, takes the head coaching job in Miami. Mike McCarthy is coming back and is going to Pittsburgh. Mike McDaniel from Miami as a head coach to the Los Angeles Chargers as the offensive coordinator. And one that I wanted to throw at the end is Christian Parker is the new Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. He was the Philadelphia Eagles secondary coach and defensive pass game coordinator. And I think that he was one of the biggest reasons why we saw 2 first team All Pros coming out of the Eagles secondary this year because of his coaching. So although I hate the Dallas Cowboys, I'm excited to see what Christian Parker can do, and I'm happy for the guy. So yeah, let's just kind of run through what we think are the most notable ones and who do you think is going to stick the most?
Um, One that I'm actually really, really excited for is the tandem between Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll. We just saw what Brian Daboll can do with developing quarterbacks. He established a really good relationship with Jackson Dart, and people think that's a lot of the reason why Dart had so much success is because, Daboll kind of took him under his wing and
Hmm.
that means a lot to young players, and obviously they've got Cam Ward over there who was in the same draft class, rookie last year, had a pretty solid year, but Dable knows his stuff when it comes to offensive coordinator. He brought up Allen as well. Like
Hmm.
Allen got drafted into his system and really, really figured it out. Or at least I believe he got drafted into the system. I know
Hmm.
he really started to become Josh Allen of now. Um, in Dable's system. So I'm really excited about that because I think Robert Saleh really needs a solid OC to back him up. He's obviously a genius when it comes to defense, but when he was over at the Jets, that offense was pretty terrible
Terrible.
overall. So I'm really happy to see those two working together. I think they could really create a really solid product over there. Um, and I'm pretty excited to see what they can do as long as their GM and their front office allows for them to get good offensive personnel.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. I think it's going to be extremely interesting to watch because this is a combination of two guys that are super like for like trying to be a player's coach. I don't know how else to say it, but they both seem like they try and bring this youthful aspect to their football teams and they try and connect with the players differently than some other coaches. So I think it's going to be an interesting tandem of two guys trying to, lead a football team. And I think this could be a career-defining job for Brian Daboll because he has the number one overall pick in Cam Ward and they're going to have a last place schedule. And if he can turn this offense around and make it something, formidable and kind of make them, they don't even have to be a top 10 offense next year. That's completely unrealistic. But if they're middle of the pack next year after being what they were last year, that's going to say a lot about Brian Daboll's ability to run an offense. And for me, I think the the hire that I am most confused about is Joe Brady being promoted to head coach of the Buffalo Bills because I think if you're going to fire Sean McDermott, you you're trying to send a message that what we're doing right now isn't enough.
Yeah.
And to promote the offensive coordinator um, and kind of higher within, I think it was a lateral move, and it probably, in my opinion, is a step back even because I think Sean McDermott is a phenomenal head coach and he'll land on his feet, but the hire of or the promotion of Joe Brady just seems to be something that I'm sure it's had something to do with Josh Allen, but if you're gonna really try and shake things up, I think an internal hire at this point is not gonna do it. And I thought that they were gonna bring in, potentially a John Harbaugh or someone who is a bigger name who's been there and has the experience to lead them and lead Josh Allen to the promised land, which I think he needs to because not that he is. He's obviously a top three quarterback in football, but the guy plays reckless at times, and he had some boneheaded plays in that game against Denver that resulted in them losing the football game. So that's kind of the one that I was a little bit confused about. But I am also looking I'm very excited to see the Titans and how they improve year over year. And I think that Mike McCarthy to the Steelers is going to be interesting because I think we're going to see a Steelers team that is trying to air it out a little bit more. And we haven't seen that in God knows how long because they just seem to want to run the ball and play good defense and take what they're giving you and have a low point total each game. And this is going to be something completely different. So I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I w would like to say about both of those hires is I don't think either of them move the needle for either of those teams because their problem was never the coach. The problem was what was on the field. And um, I think the Bills were really hurt by how weak their receiver core
Hmm.
was. And they were really hurt by the fact that uh, their front office has not hit on a draft pick hardly at all within the last 5 years. And um, the only addition to Josh Allen has that he's ever had is James Cook and Stephon Diggs, who are great players, but that he just had no weapons. This year was the year for him to do it, but
Hmm.
his wide receiver one was Khalil Shakir, and his wide receiver two is Keon Coleman, Brandon Cooks,
Right. Probably Brandon Cooks at the
Shaver.
end. I mean,
He has two solid tight ends, but a average offensive line.
mm,
I don't know. It just felt like that doesn't move the needle because nothing really changes with Joe Brady. The offensive system
right.
stays the same, and what happens to the defense? I don't know. Probably not that much. And the defense wasn't all that great to begin with. But again, they don't really have all that great of personnel.
Hmm.
They have Joey Bosa, and they have Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White, and they have some solid pieces, but they don't have enough. Oh, Poyer is another good player
Hmm.
too. But to me, that team all came down to how it was constructed, and it just wasn't constructed well at all, and it didn't have the right pieces to win a Super Bowl. And the same thing goes for the Steelers. Ever since Roethlisberger retired, they've had Kenny Pickett and Aaron Rodgers at age 42. That needs to be specified.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of, they had Mitchell Trubisky starting for a while. Like they've had these mediocre quarterbacks and really, really solid defenses and mediocre weapons up until DK Metcalf got there, and it just feels like that repeating cycle for them. Ever since the Killer Bees, they've just
Hmm.
kind of loaded up with this mediocre talent. And, when you're running a franchise, you either got to be at the bottom or at the top. You
Right.
don't want to be in the middle because that puts you in like football purgatory. And, you either got to rebuild or you got to compete for a Super Bowl. And the
Hmm.
Steelers have done neither of those. So I don't know. Both of those fires, I guess Tomlin technically wasn't a fire, but
Yeah,
um,
if he were to go try and coach another team, he would have to get traded because he resigned.
right.
Which is interesting. But um, yeah, I think that'll pretty much do it for this third episode of the Cover Three podcast. We appreciate you all for tuning in. We will be back with more content leading up to the Super Bowl. Give us a little preview and predictions for the biggest game of the year, and we will see you all then. I appreciate you all for listening.
Peace.
Take care. Bye.